King Charles III is the oldest monarch ever to ascend the British throne, which means his health has been in question since day one. The palace loves its privacy, but here's what we've managed to learn about the monarch's health struggles.
But as we get to 98,
he's doing
things
tremendous.
don't work so well.
Yes.
I've discovered at 71.
Charles has had many polo plane accidents over the course of his life. In 1990, he fractured his right arm in 2 places after he found himself on the wrong end of a horse's hooves. Fast forward to 1993, the then Prince of Wales found himself dealing with severe back pain after going too hard during a game, which caused an old back injury to flare up. Then in 1998, Charles went fox hunting and fell, resulting in a broken rib. The year 2001 saw him hunting again, and this time an unplanned collision resulted in a shoulder injury. The fall that was perhaps the most alarming of them all was in 2001 during a polo match with his sons, Harry and William. Speaking to NBC, Charles said that the fall knocked him unconscious. He recalled, "Harry told me later that he thought, when I was lying on the ground, that he said, Papa's just snoring, and there I was busily swallowing my tongue and quietly dying." In his memoir Spare, Prince Harry mentions that Charles regularly practices headstands to counter the pain in his neck and back because of his old polo injuries. Nobody would bat an eye if Charles started complaining about back pain today, but he was dealing with severe back pain when he was still a younger man. In 1991, Charles had to forego several of his royal engagements because of debilitating back pain, which his doctor later said was because of a degenerative disc. The pain forced the future king to lay off the polo for a time to avoid aggravating his injury. In 2021, Charles admitted to the royal household's poet, Simon Armitage, that his back is, quote, not so good. When discussing his passion for gardening, he referenced how his pain impacted his ability to get down on the ground to plant trees.
I spend my life trying to do it on my knees, which is all very well, but digging on your knees is an interesting business.
In 2003, Charles was hospitalized for surgery to repair a hernia, which he got when he overexerted himself planting hedges. BBC News was quick to report on the then Prince of Wales' hospitalization. Again, Buckingham Palace assured the public that Charles was more than fine. Charles went out of his way to reassure that the surgery was not serious. According to the Cleveland Clinic, hernias are pretty common and typically occur when weak areas in the stomach or groin give away and allow organs to bulge through the opening. Most hernias don't require immediate medical attention unless they are causing an obstruction or cutting off blood supply to organs or tissue, but they do need to be surgically repaired at some point. This was the case for Charles. Hernia repair surgery is usually simple and is considered a minor procedure. So when Charles was leaving the hospital post-op, he was basically back to his old self, greeting people gathered outside and even cracking jokes. He reportedly quipped, "Hernia today, gone tomorrow." Even though the procedure was a minor one, Charles still took a week off to rest and recover. The palace called the surgery a fairly routine operation, saying that Charles was very cheerful as he left the hospital. In 2008, then Prince Charles had a small growth on his face removed. The royal family has a predisposition for non-cancerous facial growths. For instance, Prince Philip had a benign growth surgically removed from his nose in 1996. The American Cancer Society notes that, sometimes, benign growths or tumors are hereditary and often occur because of what is known as family cancer syndrome, meaning that certain cancers run in a family. Even if benign growths or tumors are not an indication of family cancer syndrome, they have the potential to become malignant if left untreated, and are usually removed. The procedure Charles underwent to remove the non-cancerous growth from his face was very minor. He reportedly left the hospital and went straight to a royal engagement at his Highgrove house afterward. The bandage covering his nose was the only evidence that he'd had a procedure. News that King Charles III had contracted COVID-19 spread like wildfire in March 2020. At the time, the then Prince of Wales was one of the 400,000 plus people who had already gotten sick with the virus as the pandemic broke out. The royal family assured the public that all was well and that there was no need to be distressed. A press statement released by Charles' then residence, Clarence House, stated, "The Prince of Wales has tested positive for coronavirus. He has been displaying mild symptoms but otherwise remains in good health and has been working from home throughout the last few days as usual." Charles was believed to have possibly contracted the virus from Prince Albert of Monaco. Albert and Charles mingled while attending the Water and Climate Aid Summit in London, and Albert was diagnosed with COVID mere days after the event. Charles was overwhelmed with well wishes from royal fans after news of his diagnosis broke, and took to his X, then Twitter, account to thank the public for their messages. The Clarence House account posted a smiling image of him with the caption, "He is enormously touched by your kind words." Royal watchers and the British press have had an obsession with the king's hands, which more often than not have looked painfully swollen for some time. Charles' hands became impossible to ignore when he and wife Camilla attended a royal engagement in South London in 2021. Photos of Charles pulling a pint of beer showed his swollen hands. Soon, Charles' sausage fingers dominated Google's most searched terms in the UK.
Do you know, I mean, sausage fingers, doesn't he? I didn't realise it.
This wasn't a recent issue for the future king, however. He's been dealing with it since at least 2012, when he jokingly referred to his own swollen hands as sausage fingers. Dr. Chun Tang told the Daily Mail that the king's swollen hands could have various underlying causes. The condition is referred to as dactylitis and could indicate that someone has bacterial infections, arthritis, inflammation, or even tuberculosis. Tang added, other possibilities include high salt levels, allergic reactions, medicinal side effects, injury, and autoimmune diseases. Given Buckingham Palace's track record with giving answers about royal ailments, we likely won't know the true cause of King Charles' swollen hands anytime soon. Almost 2 years after kicking COVID-19 the first time, then Prince Charles contracted the virus once again. It seemed that he was none too thrilled with the situation. The Guardian quoted his wife, Camilla, as telling those present at a royal engagement that her husband was not exactly happy that he had to self-isolate and was finding it a bit tiresome. Charles' official X account broke the news of his second COVID-19 infection, stating, "This morning the Prince of Wales has tested positive for COVID-19 and is now self-isolating. His Royal Highness is deeply disappointed not to be able to attend today's events in Winchester and will look to reschedule his visit as soon as possible." The comments were once again filled with well wishes, but some criticized Charles for no longer wearing a mask during public engagements. This time around, it wasn't clear where Charles might have contracted the virus, but there were some concerns that he could have infected his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, since he had spent time with her shortly before his diagnosis. Buckingham Palace revealed that the Queen's vaccinations were up to date and that she would be tested for the virus daily. Charles presumably had all his vaccinations as well. In December 2021, he and Camilla were encouraging the public to get their booster shots after getting their own. News that King Charles was checking into the hospital in January 2024 drew some concern. For the most part, it isn't common for monarchs to let their health issues be known, but according to a palace insider who spoke to ABC News, Charles hoped that sharing his ailment would help raise awareness of the condition. On January 17th, the palace released a statement announcing Charles was scheduled for a procedure for an enlarged prostate. On January 29th, the palace announced that Charles had been discharged from the hospital and was doing well, with his upcoming engagements to be rescheduled. The statement read, "His Majesty would like to thank the medical team and all those involved in supporting his hospital visit, and is grateful for all the kind messages he has received in recent days." Many of Charles' subjects came to the hospital to smile and wave as he left. While not ideal, Charles' prostate issues aren't unheard of for someone his age, with many men often getting the same procedure.
He is thinking about raising awareness for these kind of conditions, and especially when it comes to men's health.
When you're the king, certain protocols must be in place so things can continue as normally as possible should your health decline. As it turns out, the House of Lords has a contingency plan should King Charles fall so ill that he's unable to fulfill his duties. The proper protocols are contained in what's called the Regency Act. This act stipulates who is responsible for taking over the king's various duties when he is unfit to work. Usually, this responsibility falls to the person who is next in line to the throne. In this case, Prince William. The Prince of Wales won't be the only one who could step in, however. Senior members of the royal family can do so as well, but that doesn't include Prince Harry or Prince Andrew, given that Harry is no longer a working member of the royal family, and Andrew has been disgraced by sexual misconduct allegations. That makes Princess Anne and Prince Edward the most likely choices. They were added to the list with the 2022 Counselors of State Act.